up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast, doing another movie review. This time I'm doing Subspecies 5, Bloodrise 2023. Directed by Ted Nicolau. Cast consists of Andres Ho, Denise Duff, Stasa Nikolic, Yulia Gralt, Marko Filipovic. Plot is stolen by Crusaders on the night of his birth. He has no knowledge of his bloodline. His mother is a demon. His father is a vampire. Trained and exploited by a brotherhood of mystic monks who slay all enemies of the church, fate brings him back one night to the castle of his father, armed with the monster-slaying sword of Layers, I don't know how you pronounce that, to destroy the vampire Vladisalis and reclaim a holy relic, the Bloodstone. The events of that night turned Radu from a noble man into a vampire with no mask. For the Bloodstone he hopes will bring him peace. Spanning 500 years in the life of the vampire Radu Vladisalis, this long-anticipated prequel to the Subspecies series chronicles Radu's descent from a noble warrior for the church to a depraved creature of the night. Yeah, I've been a fan of this series for a while now. Ironically, the first Subspecies came out in early 90s, so like 91, I think. The movies are produced by the studio for Full Moon, who has a lot of great content, including Puppet Master series and Dangerous Toys or something like that. But they have like a whole series of stuff. Generally B-rated horror, but stuff like the first Puppet Master was one that really caught fire. So they do have some high quality stuff. The Subspecies series, I know the first one probably was more of the high quality they were hoping for, but it's kind of fallen into this cult-like status for Subspecies. And really, I remember seeing the first two with 91 and 93. And then probably about 15 years ago, I finally went back and watched the first two, and then 3 and 4. 4 was a little lackluster. The first 3 are really good. I really liked this one here, Bloodrise, a lot for a lot of different reasons, which I'll get into. The first film does not have Denise Duff, but she appeared in the second film, and she's been a regular since then with Anders Hall, always playing Radu, which is really cool. So they're staying consistent with that, with the actors and the characters. In this one, Denise Duff is playing Helena, who is basically a descendant of her character, Michelle Morgan, from the first 2, 3, and 4. So her character knows her for a more modern day. Subspecies back then was all kind of more present time, even though time had passed for Radu, the vampire. But this is a prequel, so this, for a good portion of this movie, we're watching Radu as this Knight Templar who is killing vampires for the church in the name of God. So he's almost like a Van Helsing in a way. He's got like a monk with him, and they're going around slaying demons and shit and monsters. So he ends up coming to this castle, and I think it's the lead vampire, Vladislav, or his father, I guess. And I think Vladislav actually gets away, but he comes across a woman and her child, young son, and that's Helena. And the monks warning him, you need to kill them because they've been with the father and they're probably infected with the blood of the vampire. He doesn't do it. He falls under Helena's spell a little bit there. Neither one has bite marks, so that kind of further convinces him to take the risk. But eventually Helena, she, because while Radu's there, he's gotten a hold of the Bloodstone, like it's a relic from his bloodline. He doesn't really know exactly what it does, but he knows it's important to his family's, heritage and everything. So he's seeing like this. The boy never transforms or gets, into a vampire. Like he isn't bitten or infected in any way, but Helena is. So Helena starts to really struggle with, like, basically starving. She hasn't fed or anything, so and she isn't quite wild, so she's in that in between stage. So she's still like somewhat seducing Radu on a level, which is really weird because Radu is old at this point. It doesn't really affect the story from way back when because Radu was always in like makeup as a vampire. He always looked like run down and old. So the fact that he's older in this film for a prequel works with the rest of the series. People are like, wow, I don't know, is he supposed to be younger in the earliest movies? No, he's not. And that's part of the thing. Even later in the film, Helena makes mention that he's just a monster. Like he doesn't look as young as some of the other vampires that they have around them. So yeah, she still seduces him, and like eventually he allows her to drink from the bloodstone, which gives her sustenance, and it also gives like different types of worldly powers. So she convinces Radu to drink from it, and he does, and he's kind of like just in his like I don't know dreamy state for a hot second, and that's when she bites him and then feeds him her blood, which then will turn him into a vampire. So he has this quest basically, like Vladislav shows up, takes Helena and the son back with him. They just fade out with the shadow, leaving Radu on his own, like either perish or whatever. So he's a survivor, and he's by himself. The monk has already left. The monk doesn't like the whole situation anyway, so he's gone. So Radu is now not by himself. He's having to feed out. He feeds on people he can come across that is isolated or whatever. But he ends up coming to this encampment. Excuse me. He comes across this encampment where Stasa, Nikolic, and Marco are. I think it's Ash and Ariel. Their names. They're siblings, and they're musicians. They're really good musicians for that time. It's not like they're a rock band or anything, but she plays the flute, he plays some sort of harpsichord or whatever that is. And, they're very talented, and they're entertain people trying to get money, coins, to survive. She initially sees Radu peeking over like a wagon because he's entranced by the music. It's dark and everything. So, but she sees them and she feels kind of creeped out, but she keeps playing anyway. That night, he appears outside their barn. And promises them immortality because he wants them for companionship, and he wants them because they're playing music, which helps him deal with life because he's been alone for a while. He's struggling. He's pissed off that Helena turned him into a vampire. Yet he still has this like love for Helena, so it's like a catch-22 with her. But he hasn't seen her since Vladislav took her, and so basically he makes the siblings his vampire servants, or children as he would call them, and they're not really happy about it per se. He has to teach them to basically feed, take care of themselves. Ariel's the most headstrong, and whereas Ash is more just he isn't as bad or pushed back against it as much. I mean, he's still pissed at Radu, but not in the same sense that Ariel is. So eventually, the two leave Radu. They just one night decide to like ditch out, like Audi 5. We're gonna go take care of ourselves. We don't have a master. Anyway, skip forward. Radu eventually finds the two pair, the siblings, and they are working for a new master, basically. And so he wants to meet this person. And it turns out that person has to be Helena. So we're getting kind of towards the end of the film. I'm not going to give anything away. It's out there right now. This movie is streaming on Tubi, which is a free app, which I had a big spiel about cable and everything else, but I think a lot of people I now know that, if you have a Roku or your phone, the apps that are available to you to save money from the high cable bills, they're out there. So Tubi is one of those great free channels that you can find on a Roku. If you don't have them, get it. It's free. It has ads in the movies, but it's really not that bad. but the content that they give you is so great, especially if you are someone who's like a horror fan. They always have a lot of like old school horror films and stuff like that on there. I'm constantly watching. I do have Shudder, but like Shudder doesn't have quite the catalog that Tubi does, so it's a cross between the two for me. But one's free, so you get it. And so it's on there right now. So I was a little surprised because I did a trailer reaction for Subspecies 5 a few months back. And I didn't fully expect it to be on Tubi this fast because Full Moon has their own app. You have to pay for the subscription, but they have all their material on there. So I was a little surprised to see Subspecies 5 on there this early. But then again, we just saw The Lake. If you haven't seen the Cinematic Synergy review of that with Fast Samurai Guy and 60 Sumo, and of course Kaylee Headquarters, we did a review on that. That's kind of a recent movie too. So Tubi's kind of cool in the sense that some of these lower budget horror films and monster movies come up on their channel a lot. So again, if you don't have it, check it out. But as I said, Duff and Hove return in this film, continue their characters, except for Duff is, of course, playing a descendant of Michelle Morgan. But I would say that Stasa Nikolic and Marko Filipovic are a very sharp-looking couple, even though they're siblings in this film. I mean, I don't think they're together or anything, but as a couple, like actors, they're very attractive. I'm not even, I don't float the guy away, but the reality is that she's sharp. And it's funny because Marco in this film looks like a lot like a young Jared Leto, like the long hair. I mean, he's almost an heir apparent. Like every time I was watching this, I kept thinking it was Jared. Like he looks just like Jared Leto. So they're a sharp couple. Stas is gorgeous. She's been in a few other things, but not a whole lot. They're both kind of young in the acting world, but kind of kudos to them for getting in this film. They did a really good job with their roles. I enjoyed it a lot. Their characters in this. The film ends kind of the way you might think. I would have to go back and watch the first Subspecies just to kind of see where it begins, as opposed to where this one ended. Because there is this like reconciliation between Radu and Ariel towards the end of the film. Like she becomes more of, she wants him as a master. So there's like this battle now between Ariel and Helena. But there's something that happens at the end that's, a catalyst for Radu's vengeance or whatever going forward. Good film. I really liked this a lot. Probably, I have to say, probably my favorite of the entire series. And I only say this because, one, the plot is very, very good. I mean, we've seen plots like this before, like John Carpenter's Vampires has a similar theme, and that with James Woods and whatnot. But the plot is really good, very strong. It was well made. For a prequel this late in the game, very good. Because I think 4 came out in the late 90s, so this is quite a time now has passed, and so the fact that they did a prequel is awesome. Like I really, really enjoyed this. So much so that I never initially thought about getting the series on DVD or Blu-ray, but I think with this entry now, I think I might at some point try to get all 5. Maybe I can get a good deal on all 5 movies. Because this is just a really good film. Like it's just fucking flat out good. My rating out of 10 is 9 out of 10. I really like this a lot. Maybe want a little more towards the end. It's funny because when I went to G Fest this past week with Neko, met Kevin Lambert from Kaylee Headquarters and Sci-Fi Century, who we're all going to do a recap show tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're all in the Godzilla and want to know how we thought about G-Fest and our experiences there, we got some footage. We got some, merch hauls. We'll show you, and meet and greets with Linda Miller, Don Fry, TJ Storm, just, a lot of people there. So if you want to check that out, stop by. We'll be doing a live feed at 6 p.m. Eastern for that Godzilla stuff. But I kind of forgot where I was going to go with this story. But we were in the hotel room, and I saw that this was on Tubi, so I was throwing on Tubi on the Chromecast, and we started watching, but we were talking so much and enjoying each other's company because first time we all met together. That I really didn't follow, but I remember stopping. It was maybe 20 or 30 minutes in, saying I got to get back to this when I get home, and so I did. I thought at one point I'm watching the movie at home here, and I stopped. And it was halfway through. It's well, this is pretty good. I'm engaged. I'm interested, and it's only halfway through. By the time the end came, it was 10 minutes. I was wow, man, that time flew by fast. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's really good. It's engaging, but then by the end, you're kind of wanting more about that. But budgets and everything else, you understand they have to limit themselves. But it's a really well-made movie, well put together. And for a prequel, it does what it needs to do. And I'm glad that Duff and Hove came back for their respective characters, because that's really kind of what makes the entire series. I forget the girl that starred in the first film. I think initially that might have been something that was considered a one-off before it got the sequel. I don't remember if the girl died in that or not, the first one. But like I said, Duff started in the second one, and she's been there ever since. So hats off to her. She's been a really good actress in the horror genre, and enjoy a lot of her work, including Subspecies. So 9 out of 10 from this guy on Subspecies 5 Bloodrise. And check it out, as Joe Bob would say. Later today, if you're around and you are into gaming, Edgar Alpone and I usually do the sports kind of stuff, which we will do another episode in a few weeks as football season's around the corner. But today we are going to be talking some Diablo 4. I'm continuing my ever quest to throw out my anger towards this game right now. It's a love-hate relationship right now with that game. And Code and I are going to let loose a little bit and give our thoughts on that game today at 7 p.m. Eastern. So be looking for that. Other than that, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video if you liked it. And continue to support Metal Town Radio, please. And we'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.